So today we're going to spend a little time talking about finding a word of the year before we get into that creative practice. And so the process of choosing a word really helps us focus on goals and things that we want to work for in the next year. So whether you're going to focus on family or personal growth or your health, things like that. And choosing a word, maybe it's something that you've done before, but it doesn't have to be difficult. And we're going to do it together today. Maybe you already have a word that you want to use. Maybe you have no idea where to even start. And like I said, we'll go through that process together. And of course, you can work off a blank piece of paper, or if you have your journal, we can work off our journal today. But I definitely want us to spend some time thinking about the type of word that we're going to choose, whether it's promoting an action, something like leap or rise. Maybe it's something that describes like calm or fierce. And of course, I'm going to talk more about this in just a moment. But it can also be a word that focuses on like something concrete, like family or home. Coming up with a motivational word really does help us when it comes to like goal setting and achieving things. Now, I know January, it's typical for people to think about our New Year's resolutions or what goals we want to have for ourselves for the new year. And this is just kind of another way to look at this. Once we go through that process of choosing our word of the year, our personal word of the year, then we can kind of set our goals and priorities with that word in mind. And one of the things that I always find interesting is whatever word I choose at the beginning of the year, it seems to pop up quite a bit. I start to notice that word everywhere. And so it's something that kind of sits in my mind, at the forefront of my mind. And as I was saying with wabi sabi, it's something that just kind of helps us change our focus and our mindset to having that word. But anyway, I do want to say too, we're talking about a word of the year, but there's no rule that says we have to only have one word of the year. You can have a handful of words. You can have a word for each month. But we're going to kind of start off thinking about a word of the year for ourselves. So let's go ahead. Once you have a clean sheet of paper, we're going to do just a little exercise. I'm going to take just a regular pen. All we're going to use today is that piece of paper, something to write with, and something to add color. So I'm going to be using some colored pens and markers. But you can use colored pencils, you can use crayons, pastels, watercolor, or just a black pen works as well. Let's go ahead. You have a clean sheet of paper. I want us to take a moment just to think for a moment. Think about the things that maybe you want to focus on for this upcoming year. Maybe what comes to mind are some goals that you have for yourself. Maybe it's to eat healthier. Maybe it's to walk more. Maybe it's to spend more time with your family. But take just a moment and think about something you'd like to focus on this year. You can be simple in your description or pretty detailed. But I want to encourage you not to overwhelm yourself. I know sometimes that can feel daunting too. But I'm going to go ahead. Know that you don't have to share this. This can be just for you. But I'm going to go ahead and write down some for myself. If you want to list just a few of them, or maybe if there's only one that you want to do, but go ahead and start listing those out. And I'm going to write down some for myself. And again, it can be super specific. It can even be vague, but just take a moment to write down some of the goals that you want to set for yourself or that you've been thinking about for this new year. And it can be anything. Mm. Like I said, you'll be able to see the ones that I'm writing down, and you're welcome to put those down for yourself also. But just take a moment to think about those things, those aspirations, those goals that you have, the maybe the things you want to learn this year, maybe to be more focused on health, read more. Oh, that's a good one. It doesn't have to be a long list. Now that we have our list in front of us, if you're still writing things down, definitely continue to do so. But now that we have our list in front of us, take a moment to kind of look over what you've written. Notice if there's a theme that's starting to stick out. It doesn't have to be one word. It can be a few words. Think about the theme. Is there something that stands out or that kind of describes your list here? Maybe it's a couple things. Maybe it's a sentence. Think about what that theme is or something that you're noticing that kind of goes across your list. And you can see mine's not super detailed. Once you get to that point, really think about some words that you can use to describe your theme. And just take a moment to list some of those words. Maybe it's one or two words. Maybe it's 20 words, 30 words. Um, maybe it's just one. And when you get there, get that list of those words. Notice if there's a word that stands out to you more than the others. There one that's jumping out. Maybe there's two. Maybe there's a phrase that's jumping out. Whatever word that's jumping out to you. Maybe like I said, maybe it's a phrase. Once you have that word, I'm going to move over to my second page here, but you can still work on that first page if you want. But I'm going to go over to my second page, and I would encourage you to do that as well. Find that clean space, and I'm just going to write that word or phrase in the center. I'm just going to draw a little circle around it. Know that it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see my circle is a little wonky. My handwriting is a little a little off. Go ahead and write that word or phrase that's jumping out to you. Go ahead and write that down and just put a circle around it. We're going to spend the next few moments really kind of focusing in on this word or phrase. And like I said, know that this word or phrase, it can change. Maybe it's the word of the day, and it changes tomorrow. Maybe it's the word that we want to use as our affirmation for the whole year, or maybe just a few months. But whatever that affirmation, that motivational word is, we're going to spend some time really kind of focusing in on that. So I want to encourage you, we'll start with that circle. And let's just kind of build some circles around it. We're going to spend some time doing just a simple meditation. You can see I've just got some circles around. Yours can look like mine, or it can be a little different, but I'm just adding those circles. One of the things that we talk about in several of our groups is, like I said, this idea of mindfulness, of being in the moment and focusing on what's right in front of us. And today, what's right in front of us is that affirmation word of the year. We talk a lot about mindful drawing, and this idea of mandala is something that comes up, and like I said, quite often. But a mandala is basically, at its core, at its base, basic self is focusing like in the center and kind of working your way out. And the idea is that when you get to the end of whatever you're working on, you've reached this place of wisdom or peace or focus or calm, whatever your intention is. And so we're going to kind of do that with our word today. We're going to start with that center and kind of work our way out. And so we'll add different marks, we'll add some words, but we're just going to spend some time starting in that center and working our way out. So if you've got your colors or pencils, or maybe you're just using that pen, go ahead and pull them out. Let's start off. You can see my motivational word is in the center. Let's kind of go out to that next ring. And we're going to add some mark making. Maybe it's doing some lines. Maybe it's just adding some color. Whatever it is, let's take a moment to start filling in that next ring. You can see for me, I'm going to take some markers, some pens, and I'm just going to start drawing some lines, adding that little bit of color. I'm going to take my time with it, and I want to encourage you to do that as well. I think there are a lot of benefits to slowing down and being present, being in the moment. I know for me, when I get really into like drawing or painting or whatever it is, I start picking up speed, and I have to remind myself to take a breath. Put your pen down for a second, take a breath, and slow down. What we're doing right now is something that's called the centering circles. And all it is focusing on building these circles around that center point. And our center point today, like I said, is that affirmation that we've chosen. We're just building these circles by adding color, by adding marks. Maybe it's shapes. Maybe you want to add in circles or hearts. Mm-hmm. I'm doing lines in mine, blue lines. Feel free to do what I'm doing, or kind of strike out on your own and create your own patterns and colors. Just take a moment
Mhm.
to fill in that ring. Take your time with it. Know that it doesn't have to be perfect. Whatever you're working on, it doesn't have to be super straight lines. Uh, it doesn't have to be even inside the lines. You'll see often that I spend a lot of my lines, kind of my colors go outside the lines. And that's okay. Because again, our focus is not about making this perfect um, finished piece. It's all about making those marks, doing those steps, adding that color. It's all focused on that making part. Just go ahead and start adding those shapes, adding those lines, adding those colors. If you find yourself getting distracted or your mind wandering just a little bit, know that that's okay. What that means is your brain is doing what it was meant to do. Your brain was meant to think and to process. But if you find that it's happening, just be gentle with yourself and just guide your thoughts and your attention back to what's right in front of you, back to this drawing. And start filling in those spaces. Maybe think about that affirmation word or phrase. And think about what that means. And again, just start adding those patterns and colors. And let that envelop this word or phrase that we have written down. Just kind of fill that space up. And as I said, it's not about making this perfect finished piece. It's about focusing on this goal, this word, this affirmation that we want to claim for ourselves in this upcoming year. Take your time with it. One of the things that I'm going to do in my next circle is I'm going to spend a moment just writing a couple things down. We kind of went from a whole lot of words down to one or two words, kind of figuring out what our word of the year is. And so if you have a space and you would like to, I would encourage you to take a moment and think about what that means to you. What what that goal means and how that manifests, how you can work towards that goal, that word. My affirmation word is to notice the small things more. And so what I might write is thinking about taking a moment to stop and appreciate where I am, what's around me, being more aware of those little moments of joy that sometimes I miss when I get busy or am going in so many directions. And so I'm just going to kind of write some of my thoughts there in that next circle. And you're more than welcome to do that as well. Thinking about what that word, that affirmation word, that motivational word, um, what that means to you. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of words. You don't even have to write it all. If you want to keep doing those patterns, that's perfect too. It doesn't have to be a lot of words. You can see mine. I just wrote a few words there. I'm going to come back to adding in some color to my patterns. Know that whatever you do is good. Whatever you write is good. This is just a time to kind of think about what we want for ourselves in this coming year. Just kind of fill those spaces in, knowing there's no wrong way to do this. And just kind of filling that space in. And like I said, if you feel yourself getting a little distracted, your mind wandering a little bit, well, that's okay. Just gently bring your thoughts back, your focus back to what's right in front of us, to that affirmation, to the mark making. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to uh, be even. You can see that my circles are a little wonky and all over the place. And that's some of that beauty I was talking about earlier, the beauty in that imperfection. And if you just have just a black pen or a number 2 pencil, that's good too. We don't need any special colors today. But feel free to add as many colors as you want, just kind of centering around this affirmation. Know that you don't have to have this finished today or in our time together. So there's no need to rush through it. Give yourself permission to slow down. Your time with it today. I shared one of the things that I notice every time I come up with my word of the year or phrase of the year, I always seem to start finding that everywhere, that word I've claimed for myself. But I also start leaving little notes for myself about this too. Last year, my word was breathe. And I had little notes that said, little sticky notes that said breathe. I had one by my desk and one by my bed. And it was just this little reminder, my word for my year, to take a moment and breathe. And so maybe you find you want to do that too. Maybe it's not a sticky note, but maybe it's just a little piece of paper. that you can place somewhere so you'll be able to see it, to notice it and be encouraged by it, be reminded of it. Mhm.